Welcome to the Going North podcast, where you will be encouraged, informed, and empowered to embrace your dreams and advance in life through authorship. I'm your host, bestselling author, certified leadership trainer, and book enthusiast Dom Brightman. Be sure to check out the goods and services from every guest, as well as some of the books from yours truly, the host. Now let the fun begin. And today on the Going North podcast, we're bringing some fabulous humans from across the globe. Today is another day where we got another awesome guest, a super special awesome guest, because we got a CEO, a TEDx speaker, and a future best-selling author, folks. I'm telling you, this guy right here, my goodness, my goodness. They say honesty is the best policy. They do. And this guy, with his new book, Honest to Greatness, you're going to figure out why that cliche is so darn true, because the subtitle for this book is How Today's Greatest Leaders Use Brutal Honesty to Achieve Massive Success. And folks, we all need honesty in our lives, whether it comes with a spoonful of sugar or not. So let's give it up for the one, the only PK himself, Mr. Peter Kozodoy. How you doing today, sir?
Dom, you're too kind. I have to wheel you out along with me for these shows, and that way you can just intro me wherever we go. Thank you so much.
Ah, yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Might even have to break out a random beatbox version.
I would love to hear that.
That's right. Just bust out around random day, especially in the wrong audience. Is like, okay, Peter, where'd you find this guy? But yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. My man has been on a success train for these past few years, and it seems like this is the year where the cherry's coming on the metaphorical success cupcake for you with the launch of the book.
That's right. Yeah, rolling down to August 11th. It's been a 4-year journey. Tough to believe, but finally culminating in a stack of paper that I can say contains pretty much all the brain matter I could dedicate to it.
There you go. And the good news is there's probably going to be some more brain matter to come. Usually when you publish one, a bunch of others follow.
I hope the book publishing industry has been a fascinating one to learn about because it's quite binary. Either this book does really well and the publisher will want me to do 18 more, or it will totally flop and they'll say, well, that was fun. Don't call us, we'll call you. So we'll see which way it goes.
Well, there's hoping it goes north and you get to publish 20 more.
You know what? Things can't go north, Dom, unless we put them out there. That's the honest truth, right?
Oh, yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. That's right. Got to put it out there, indeed. Got to put it all out there. Well, maybe not all of it out there. Got to have some darn restraint.
That's true.
Yes, indeed. So, as with the word restraint, I'm pretty sure there are some cavities I missed with the introduction. So, mind filling in any cavities where I missed some feelings about the powerful Peter himself?
Sure thing. Yeah. So, I'll give you we're doing this late at night for you listeners out there. So you're going to get the stripped down version, right? The acoustic sunrise version of these interviews that I usually do in the morning. So I actually, Dom, I want to start my journey off as a short redheaded figure skater, which is kind of where this book begins. I was a very serious figure skater for about 20 years and was convinced that I was going to go to the Olympics. In fact, one of the stories I told in the book is, 17-year-old me was convinced that in the next year I was going to reach my Olympic dream and get into Harvard, which was my lifelong goal as a kid. I grew up outside of Boston, and there was only one college, and that was Harvard, and that's where I was going. Well, by 18, Dom, I had, gotten injured once again, was nowhere near the Olympics. That had to die. And I sent an application to Harvard. Harvard sent me a letter back saying, thank you, but no thank you. And it was a pretty devastating time. And looking back on that, in the spirit of honesty, those two failures did a couple things. The first is that they put two giant chips on my shoulder. that I spent the next 10 years working to get rid of, not even knowing that they were there. And number two, it set me up for what happened when I turned 30. Dom, have you ever turned 30? This is like a catastrophic thing. I don't know how people get through this.
I'm less than 2 years away from it.
Oh my gosh. I mean, that was just heartbreaking. I was like, I'm a quarter of the way through my life. Now, for those of you math buffs, yes, I do plan to live to 120. But
Woohoo!
for some reason, there was something about that age that didn't sit well with me. And when I looked around in my life, I think those giant chips on my shoulder just became so much more apparent. Now, by the way, by the time I was 30, I had built a multi-million dollar multinational marketing agency, that ended up on the Inc. 5000 list of fastest growing companies in America for a couple of years in a row. I had just married my beautiful wife. We had just bought a home that we were renovating. For all intents and purposes, I should have just shut the hell up and been happy. But I think each and every one of us has this burning honesty inside. A lot of us know who we really are at the core, and what we really want. And when I woke up to that, I realized that there was so much more in my life that I had yet to achieve. And I sort of panicked and really started getting my ass in gear in ways that I hadn't thought were important before. One of those things was coming to terms with the fact that, if I search deeply into who I am an author. That's just who I am. Like, I always had a book in me. If you asked me, like, Peter, on your deathbed, like, what defines you? I wrote a book. That's what I would say. One of the things I would say. And so, Dom, that entire path is, of, I guess you'd say, going north, is what led me to you, and now to this moment.
Nice. And it kind of sucks where you get your dreams dashed like that, and it actually leads into another direction where you still get to at least make impact on people.
Well, what it is, is a gift. That's what I've come to understand. Is that, I was talking about this to another interview I was doing earlier this week. Is like, when I was at Columbia Business School and we were in a leadership class, we studied this really interesting case of a guy who got it in his head that he wanted to tightrope walk between two buildings in Manhattan, in New York City. I don't know where he got this, crazy notion, but he was going to be the one to do it. No one had done it before, that high, that long. And it took him, I think, decades to finally, work up, figure out, how to be a tightrope walker, work up to that thing. And he finally, got there on the day, and there's television cameras and there's people, crowds, and he takes his first step and then second step and his 20th step, and he gets to the other side and he does it. He achieves this amazing goal. And I think, being a consumer public who watches, say, the Olympics every 2 years, we're inundated with these triumphant moments. But unfortunately, Dom, what happened to this gentleman is he fell into a deep depression because he had achieved his lifelong goal, the whole thing that was driving his passion and purpose. So then the question was, now what, right? Now, if you look back, on the journey I just told you about, what I've come to realize is that, epic failures are the gifts that keep on giving, because those are the drivers that drive us to success. The successes don't teach anything, and they're endpoints. And who wants an endpoint in a life where the real joy is continually evolving, continually learning, continually being enlightened, and a better, I would say, better human being for the process. So, really, if you had talked to 5 years ago me, there would have been a much different perspective on that. But, time is a gift in that way.
That's one heck of a powerful one-liner right there. Epic failures are the gifts that keep on giving.
Mhm.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. And you're so right about that. It's kind of like the fighter who would train so hard against guys that were a lot tougher than him and a lot more experienced. And then after a while, they would actually defeat those guys and become the champion himself after getting through those experiences of taking those losses and those hits. So it's so true about that. It's like, you know what? Why don't you just go out there and get the failure over with, right? Try to fail fast and fail hard, but hard enough that you're actually able to get back up from it and learn from it.
As long as it's in what I call honest alignment with who you are, then why do anything else? Is the way I look at it with my coaching clients, right? I work with a lot of entrepreneurs, and they set these goals that are so low for themselves. It's like, putting bees in a jar. And when you put bees in a jar and put the cap on, you leave them for an hour, and then you come back and you take the cap off, they don't leave the jar, right? They have this mental ceiling above them. And I think that's what happens to so many people. And that's where this sort of, you know, my book is a business book, right? It's about making money. I like money. I'm sure you like money. But there's definitely, a personal fulfillment aspect to, who are you really and what do you really want? And what is it really going to take to get there? And how much self limiting bullshit have you covered yourself with that may be preventing you from moving towards those honest goals?
Ah, I love it. Honest alignment. That's what I'm talking about. Honest alignment. It's like when someone yells out, ha, they mean honest alignment. It's like you just got to take that pause and make sure that you're really aligned. So,
Mhm.
what I love about the magical book is the fact that honest to greatness. I feel like some folks are kind of faking the funk out there, and that's why authenticity and being authentic is a buzzword nowadays. So, what's probably one of the biggest things that keeps people from being honest, in your opinion?
Assumptions, assumptions kill us. There's that adage that when you assume, you make an ass out of you and me. That's what spells assume. And for so, we're a lot of us, Dom, we're stuck in feedback loops. And we're stuck in feedback loops as a society, individually. Let me give you an example. When you take action on social media, right? You start liking, commenting, double tapping those images on Instagram of Lamborghinis. Instagram's going to feed you more pictures of Lamborghinis, whether they're true or not, whether the account is run by a 13-year-old in India or a 47-year-old millionaire in Tennessee. Like, Instagram doesn't factor that in, right? It just knows what you like and feeds that back to you. And so over time, we're fed images and pictures and assumptions that we build our lives on and make decisions based on, right? It's like, oh, if I don't have a Lamborghini, I'm not successful, right? That's in this instance, one message that someone could unfortunately get. And the more we take action and feed into those things, the more we reinforce those assumptions and biases. And so what I've found is, if I come into a company and I can help uncover the roadblocks between what their customers already know is true and what the senior executives have assumed or what they're biased towards, then magical things happen. In essence, honesty is an act of attrition. It's not about adding things, it's about removing crap that you've put in between you and the truth. And so, what's interesting, Dom, is the first chapter in the book is literally, it's titled Fraud is Our Fault. Because this whole idea that, like, our actions, right, when we buy something from a company that doesn't treat its workers well, when we vote for a politician without really understanding who they are and what they're all about, these things come back and bite us. And we have to remove those assumptions if we're going to get to that kernel of truth and then, grow a new tree from that point forward.
Sweet. That's right. Got to grow that new tree, indeed. That's right. Yes, indeed. Wow. And it's so darn true. It's like, hey, like, I guess it kind of goes to what you're feeding. I guess which monster you're feeding, the monster of honesty or the monster of truth in a way, even though
Yeah.
both in a way, I mean, truth isn't really a monster. It may feel like a monster when you hear it, depending on what the truth is, but it's not. Maybe I probably need a better analogy for that one, but yeah, man, definitely so true about that. So with fraud being our fault after all these years of faking it until you make it, and some folks faking it until they still haven't made it,
Hmm.
what's probably been one of the easiest things for you to do when it comes to giving folks the honest truth? Because some folks may feel like they may hurt someone's feelings by telling them the truth about whether it's their business or their life. What's probably been the way to make it easier for you?
That's a great question, Dom, because when people start to dive into the book or see a keynote of mine, Their initial assumption when I say brutal honesty is, well, that means just telling someone whatever's on your mind or whatever you think. That's actually not what strategic honesty is. There's a great example that one of the CEOs in my book says. He says, if you're flying in an airplane and the pilots come over the intercom and they say, well, I've never seen storm clouds like that before. So, everyone, please put on your seatbelt. I have no idea if we're going to be able to get through this or not. Is it honest? Yes. But is it helpful? No, right? You don't want an airline pilot to say that. It's not helping the situation. So, honesty, as I describe it in my book, for the sake of achieving a successful outcome, is not just speaking your mind. Instead, it's being honest on three levels. First, honest about, with and about, what's going on in the world, or what's going on in the community. We have this, we're talking here at the end of May, and this is terrible, awful murder that's occurred, that's all over the news. Racially charged cops and a black gentleman that was murdered. Terrible, right? This is a pervasive societal, cultural issue that is going on. And to bury anyone's head in the sand, that is not honest, right? We have to come to terms with these things and what's going on in our world. The second Dom is being honest with and about the others around us. Now, there are two sides to that. You can be honest with someone, and sometimes that's really important. But also, it is our responsibility as communicators, or it's what we humans do, we have the gift of speech, to be honest about other people. And that means not necessarily confronting head on their biases and assumptions, but using language to help them see it or have it your way. Devices like, I heard you say this and I wonder if, or, the pervasive use of you. I don't know if you've ever been in a conversation where someone just goes off on somebody else saying the words, you should, right? You should do this, you should do that. It's like, wait a minute, you don't know what that person should do. You have no idea who they are, what their experience is, what all the details are. So maybe less advice and more inquiry, right? Ask questions to help that person more deeply understand what they're going through. So you have all these ways of being honest about people, but that's where empathy comes into play. And that's part of honesty. And then the third piece is being honest with and about yourself, who you really are, what you really want, not what society tells you should want, not what your parents tell you you should want, not what your friends want for you, but what's going on inside. And that's true of a person and an organization. As I write about in my book, there are many organizations who had to look themselves in the mirror and ask those questions. And when they were able to be honest with themselves and then transform, they were able to achieve ridiculous profitability and absolutely dominate their industries. So again, this is a bridge between personal leadership and organizational success.
Love it. Love it right there. Love it right there. And strategic honesty, I love that because it and I love the way that you said that it's really not telling people what's on your mind because what's on your mind may not be the truth. It just may be something totally off the wall that has nothing
Exactly.
to do with that person's
Exactly.
situation.
100%. And like, it's funny, I have a line that I do some of these interviews, which is, and it's the truth. I don't even consider myself to be a particularly honest person. And the reason is because we lie all the time. We lie to other people. We lie about what's going on in the world, right? This pandemic is proof of that. We lie about, we lie to ourselves all the time, So, yeah, maybe I'll give myself a point for recognizing that, but it doesn't change the truth that I'm a human being and we're all liars. So you're exactly right. For us to cast our own mindset onto someone else is one of the most dishonest acts we could possibly have. And by the way, a big part of why I think our country is so unfortunately divided.
Yeah, it's so true. It's like you can't really just put your head in the sand forever and just keep putting even more sand on top of your head because you'll stop breathing. And then everybody else be like, wow, these people have their heads in the sand. Oh, we don't know. They
Hmm.
just said that they were feeling fine.
Hmm.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. My man's a powerhouse, people. My man's a powerhouse. And my man's even honest too. He's so honest that he said he was a liar. I love it. Yes, indeed, because we are all human and we all have our flaws. So, since this isn't your first ever podcast interview and far from your first or your last, is there a question you wish you'd be asked more often when you're doing chats like these on podcasts?
That's a great question, Dom, and it's one I've used on others, so I guess I should have been more prepared for it. But we got into an interesting discussion the other day about some of these podcasts and success. I think a great question is like, what do we do with all these people on social media and podcasts, radio shows, and whatever, who are successful, who are dispensing advice about what it takes to be successful? And the reason I bring that up is, in terms of honesty, is I want I really want everyone to be much more thoughtful, much more honest about like the way the world works, the way people work, right? The way individuals and groups work. That to me would be a win, Dom. Like if people read my book and they have a little bit more enlightenment, a little bit more thoughtfulness, then I would consider that 100% win. And the reason I say it is this. I, like everyone else, spent my 20s listening to every single successful guru I could to try to figure out like what made them successful. How did they build a multi-million dollar company? How did they get a TED talk? How did they get a book deal? And now that I've done a lot of those things and I look back and people ask me like, how did you do that stuff? Initially, I would find myself trying to go back and pluck out these kind of gems, these diamonds. Say like, well, that was a big part of it, and that was a big part of it. But then I realized, got honest with myself, but the danger in that, which is this is a retrospective activity. Like for anyone out there listening who wants to build a company or get a book deal, anything that I have done, right? Landed triple Lutz, I can teach you how to do that. Consider this for a moment, that I can tell you what the big points were. I can teach you a system, but no one can account for the amount of luck that I had. And I don't think quote unquote successful people do a good enough job of conveying to everyone else, look, this is a lot about serendipity. It's a lot about I met neighbors, uncles, brothers, dogs, aunt, who happened to be a Fortune 500 CEO who gave me a first multi-million dollar deal. I don't think we do a good enough job of helping people understand that a lot of it boils down to luck. Now, that said, can you create your own luck in a sense? Yes, if you have enough time. You can do things like be open-minded and connect with a lot of people, be a thought leader and be a leader in your own life. Help as many people as you can. Understand the basics of business and keep educating yourself. Be honest. There are a lot of things you can do to position yourself with a lot of luck. But I think that's a really interesting and brutally honest point that I don't want to have go unsaid. And so, that kind of comes back to like, what role do these podcasts serve? What role does any kind of thought leadership content serve? And for me, they are points, right? They're data points, but they're not the whole graph. And so how I've solved that is trying to string together as many data points as I could, be open-minded and listen and try to take pieces, but know that everyone's journey has to be their own. And you're going to write your own book, literally or figuratively.
It's so true indeed. Yes, indeed. Data points. Data points. Well said right there. Well said right there. Because it's so darn true. And there's a lot of data points out there now more than ever with everybody and their dog starting podcasts now. And it just now got to like a million like a few weeks ago when there's no telling how many more there'll be by
Wow.
the end of the year. So it's so true right there. It's like you got to figure out, I guess, going back to one of your earlier powerful points of honest alignment. It's like at one point you wanted to have a book deal, get a TEDx talk, and then it's like, all right, you're at that point now, and it's like, all right, so I guess at this point it's probably more of like a legacy thing in a way. It's like, what do you plan to leave with this world?
Yeah.
Even though that
You're right. It's turned into a legacy thing for sure. And I always thought about that, I think younger than I maybe should have or would have been healthy for me, which is fine. But it's also become a sort of journey to enlightenment thing, right? Like I, when you start something kind of stupid, and like a friend of mine, Richie Norton, like that's the title of his book, The Power of Starting Something Stupid. And he's so right, because when I have a quarter life crisis at 30 and decide I want to be an author. There's a tremendous amount of pain that comes with that. There's a tremendous amount of learning, money, time, resources. It's been an incredibly painful journey. I will not lie about that. But I never am a 34-year-old Peter with a book endorsed by Barbara Corcoran if I don't act like an idiot and decide I want to be an author when I have no business being an author. So you just don't know where some of these things end up.
Oh man, it was the name of that book again? I gotta check it out.
The power of starting something stupid, and he's so true. Like that's where the growth is.
It is so darn true because I had no idea what the hell I was doing when my first book was published.
None of us do. Nobody does. Like Dom, that's like the dirty secret. Like nobody knows. Nobody knows what the fuck they're doing. I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. You don't know what the fuck. Like nobody knows, right?
Yep.
So I don't think there's enough discourse around that part. There's all the like, oh yeah, no, I knew I was going to be successful the whole time. No, you didn't. No.
Yeah, and funny enough, that pride could actually turn into it not happening. It's like, yeah, you always thought you'd be successful. Yeah, 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 yeah. Yep, I had this genie with me the whole time. It's like, no, it's not really that darn easy. And heck, even so true about creating your own luck. It's like you just take that leap of faith. In this case, leap of stupidity with a little learning with it, and actually just take
Yeah.
that action to make it really happen. So yeah, definitely. Definitely, indeed. So, since my man mentioned 25 earlier, we're coming down to the magical question that every guest gets to receive. And that is if you're to wake up tomorrow and you're 25 again, but this time in 2020 with all of your amassed knowledge and your magical book, what advice would you give to yourself?
Stop worrying. That's it. I would tell myself to like stop the head chatter, stop the worrying and the stress over will I be successful? And not because I consider myself successful now, because I don't actually, but because two things. A, the worrying doesn't solve anything. That's something my business partner has always said, and he's absolutely right. Like, worry doesn't solve anything. And number two, we just don't know where the path is going to lead. So the more we fret over it, the less headspace we have for being open to all the avenues that are always in front of us at all times. This is something that I am always, I would probably say it's one of my favorite parts of working with entrepreneurs is that they're usually sitting on top of a gold mine and they've got their binoculars out and they're looking every which way except right underneath them and what they already have in their own life. And it's like, they're so focused elsewhere. And I've been so guilty of this myself, Dom, that if we just stop and like take stock of what we already have, what our skill set already is, what our network already looks like, and dig underneath us, we all have everything it takes, and I already said a lot of it's luck, so you just got to keep moving forward. But the answer is definitely not, in what everyone else is doing and being obsessed over that and worrying about why I don't have a BMW yet and all that crap. It's just bullshit.
My man Peter's been giving the gospel tonight, y'all. My man's been giving the gospel, baby. That's what I'm
I
talking
told you
about.
this is late night session, strip down.
That's right, folks. You're getting the raw living color. That's what I'm talking about. Straight gospel, baby. That's right. Be sure to check in the show notes and leave something in the offering plate for him. Buy a copy of his book. Buy 20 copies if you want. Give one to your
So
cat if you want to.
I've got a ton of bonuses available for anyone out there who does have their own business or wants to start one. When you buy a certain number of books, like I give you like 4 different courses with classes and templates and all kinds of stuff. And there's some great bonuses. So peterkozodoy.com/bonus will give you those. And yeah, like you said, Dom, if you want to buy some for you, friends, clients, prospects, whatever, take advantage of those bonuses. They won't be up forever. I'll probably leave them up through the fall. And then that'll be that.
Woohoo! Well, there you go, folks. You heard that right. So while it's nice and sunny outside, grab the bonuses because when fall comes, it'll fall away.
Nice. You should be a poet.
Yeah. Yeah. Who knows? Maybe. You're like my drunken buddy who likes to write haikus.
Well, we'll do that on the next podcast.
That's right. Haikus with Peter. From honest to greatness back to honest.
That's it.
Oh, man. So, any parting words for the folks still listening?
So I have a quiz you can take if you go to honesttogreatness.com or peterkozodoy.com. We'll bring it to the same place. 21 questions, takes about 2 minutes, and it tells you which honesty type you are. So I would encourage everyone to just take it. Just take it, see what the questions are. You know, the questions are very telling. See what honesty type you get, and use that as a starting point. You know, be curious enough and honest and open enough to look inward, you know, ask the tough questions. And then I guess most importantly, get the help you need. You know, I'm here, Dom, because I had mentors. You know, I had my first business partner and I've had a lot of amazing help along the way. I didn't do this myself. No one does. So, you know, get the help you need. Find someone who's done what you're trying to do, learn from them, and make shit happen.
How's it going, you super special, awesome human? Since you made it to the end of this episode, it looks like you really enjoyed yourself. Since you enjoyed this episode, be sure to share it with at least 3 people in your network and tell them what you really liked about this episode.